fast. So we burst through the exit doors trying to get to the parking lot. We slowed down when we got closer, trying to remember which classroom we were just by. They all looked the same from outside. Dark squares against the brick wall, and then my friend's cousin pointed to the one where the blinds weren't completely closed. That's gotta be it. The window was way higher up than I remembered. It was at least 8 feet off the ground, and I'm 6'8", so if I can't see into it, no one can. Yes, I am 6'8", guys, and I respect women, okay? Who want me? Seriously. I told the guys I was gonna need a boost to get inside, and they immediately crouched down and cupped their hands together to help me out. I stepped into their hands and they lifted me up. Once I could reach the window ledge, I was able to pull myself up enough to see inside. But what I saw made absolutely no sense. The room looked completely normal and empty. No fire, no smoke, nothing spilled over inside, just dark lab tables and stools tucked underneath them. What do you see? Nothing. There's nothing inside here. Well, maybe it's not where the smell was coming from then. But the smell was way worse here than it was inside the hallways. It was leaking through the tiny crack I was peeking through, and it was making my eyes water. I tried pushing the window open wider so I could get a better look, but it was stuck. Probably because I haven't seen it move from that position since the whole time I was at that school. So I pushed harder using everything I had, and suddenly, it broke away. The window slid up about halfway, and now the smell was so bad that I felt like throwing up. Literally the first thing I did when that window opened more was gag. Oh my gosh, the smell is definitely coming from inside here. That's what I thought in the moment, not knowing the full truth about the situation. What is it? Can you see anything burning? No, that's the weird thing. It looked totally normal, except for the fact that the room was covered in some sort of haze, as if there was smoke in it recently. I pulled myself up higher, trying to get a better angle of the whole classroom, and I managed to squeeze myself halfway through the window, hanging in there like an idiot with my legs dangling outside of the building and my torso inside. I recalled to all the Final Destination movies I watched where someone passed away in a ridiculous cartoon way, just thinking I was next up. But I turned on my phone flashlight and panned it around, desperate to find something that would explain the smell and the smoke. The tables were all clean, the cabinets were all closed, nothing was knocked over or spilled. Guys, I don't understand, but the smell is definitely coming from inside here. Maybe it's like invisible gas or something. Which is what they said as they were still trying to hold my big back up. But the thought of invisible gas freaked me out. What if it actually was some dangerous gas that could poison us from breathing it in, or what if it could explode? I've seen stories of people just passing away one night in their sleep because of the gases, and they had no idea that it was coming. So what if we were breathing in toxic chemicals right now? So I scrambled to get back out of that window, and as soon as my feet hit the ground, I backed away from the building, taking deep breaths of the clean night air. We need to get out of here. I don't know what's going on, but we need to leave. The possibility of those dangerous invisible gases really freaked me out. The guys didn't even try arguing. The freaked out look on my face must have been enough to convince him to leave. But we needed to figure out if we were just gonna leave without saying anything or actually try and solve this. We need to call 911. There might be a gas leak or something that could explode in there. Are you insane? If we call 911, they'll wanna know who we are and why we were at school at midnight. If we do that, we're getting arrested. But what if the whole school burns down because we didn't tell anyone? We'd be responsible. As Dumb and Dumber were arguing, it felt like we were stuck in between two horrible choices. Either risk getting in serious trouble or risk being responsible for something horrible happening to the school. We decided we couldn't just leave if the school was in danger. Although we were terrified of getting caught, actually being the reason that something bad happened sounded even worse. But we knew calling 911 directly would mean us getting in trouble because of the questions they would have asked us. They ultimately would have found out that we were breaking into school, and that's how we found this smell. So we stood there trying to figure out what to do, when finally, I had an idea. What about calling the school's emergency number? You know, like the one they give the parents? We could call from a block number once we're far away, just say that we were driving by and smelt something weird, and that's it. It wasn't a perfect plan, but it was something. Because our school had this number that you could call if you had any questions or concerns, and it worked 24 hours a day because it wasn't affiliated with the actual school. It was a separate company. So we decided to get out of the parking lot first, then make the call once we knew we were a safe distance away. The plan was to leave everything exactly like we found it, so no one would know we were there, unless the camera saw us. Sorry. So we went back to my friend's dad's classroom first to make sure we didn't leave anything behind, and the smell wasn't as bad over there, so we figured that we would be okay. We checked the room quickly, making sure that nothing changed, and then we bounced. We ran for blocks without stopping, not saying a single word to each other, just trying to put as much distance between us and the school as possible. We finally stopped when we reached the park about half a mile away. All three of us stopped and laid on the grass, panting and coughing. Our lungs hurt from running so hard and from whatever that smell was that we were inhaling the whole time. So then my friend's cousin pulled out his phone and called the emergency number. We figured it would be safest for him to do it since he didn't actually go there. When the automated system picked up, he left a message about a chemical smell coming from the building. We sat in silence for a few minutes after that, all thinking the same thing. Were we going to get caught? Were there security cameras we didn't know about? Was the school itself going to be okay? We had to decide on a game plan to make sure that if anyone asked any questions, we all had the same answers. We agreed that we wouldn't talk about this to anyone, and if someone were to ask us a question about the situation, we would just deny. So that weekend was super nerve-wracking, not knowing what would happen next. But then, Monday came around. Now we had to go back to school. And I barely slept at all that weekend. The first thing I did when I got to school that morning was check out the classroom to see if anything happened to it. But when I walked by, it looked different. There was yellow caution tape across the door. And not like just a little strip. No, the whole doorway was crossed off with this bright yellow tape that said, "Do not enter." A bunch of students were crowding around the hallways trying to figure out what exactly it was. I tried to act normal as I walked past, just keeping my head down and looking through the weather in Cupertino. But a couple minutes before classes started, the principal's voice suddenly came over the intercom and said, "Attention students and staff. Because of an incident, classes in room 118 will be moved to the library until further notice." Which class was room 118? Yeah, you guessed it. The room with the caution tape over it. So what incident was the principal referring to? Isn't incident what you call when 3 students break in and almost die from chemical fumes? Did they know we were there? Were they just waiting to pull us out of class and arrest us in front of everyone? Yo, low-key, that would be kind of hard though. Like imagine your crush watching you get arrested. That'd be kind of sick. Once lunch came, I was walking towards the cafeteria when I noticed 2 teachers talking outside of that room again. They kept pointing towards the room as if they were talking about it, so I slowed down to try and hear what they were saying. "Peterson's always super careful with this stuff." "Yeah, but you know how things like this can happen when students are messing around." I kept walking before they noticed me eavesdropping, but my mind was racing. When they mentioned students messing around, I definitely thought I was getting busted. And then, in the middle of history class, my phone buzzed in my pocket. I sneakily checked it under my desk, and it was my friend sending a text that said, "Did you hear? They're saying something about an experiment that went wrong in that classroom." So I finally worked up the courage to ask my biology teacher for answers, not wanting to do it before because I didn't want to look guilty. She wasn't as strict as some of the other teachers, so I felt more comfortable asking her. "Mrs. Ramirez, I was just curious about the caution tape on room 118. Do you know what's going on in there?" "Oh, nothing too serious. Just some chemical reaction because of some liquids that were left in beakers inside that class. Apparently the students didn't clean up after doing their science experiment." My heart started hammering in my chest. "Oh, that's good. Well, were the chemicals that were released dangerous or anything?" And that's when she told me there was a chemical reaction creating a compound called ammonium chloride. So I asked her about that chemical. And she told me that those fumes can cause respiratory problems if anyone's exposed to them. Well, that's great. So if I grow a 3rd arm or something when I'm older, you guys know why. But after asking her some more questions, apparently this compound can create smoke and a really strong smell, which explained everything that we were experiencing that night. As far as I know, no one else ever found out that we were at school when this was happening, which would be great if it weren't for the fact that I am now telling thousands of people about it on the internet.